Okay, thank you. So Trini's dealing with a work emergency, so she's trying to multitask right now. So I will call the meeting to order. This is my first time chairing, so no pressure. So we'll start with public comment. So we'll go over the rules of public comment. So public comment is only about items that are not on the agenda. There's no discussion allowed during public comment. No questions can be answered. All comments have to be respectful. There's no foul language. There's no disrespectful tone. The comments might not be targeted at anybody. And each person can have up to 2 minutes per comment. Okay. And with
comment.
Okay.
Where do those comments?
Please identify yourself first, too, please. Thank you.
This is Heather Bowman. Hey. I'm wondering where those rules come from because I'm looking right here at the Randolph Selectboard Rules of Procedure, adopted in 2011, and it does not have any of those on there.
It actually does. Yeah.
Really? Which ones?
It has.
Well, it has a couple of the ones, but it does not have 2 minutes timeline. Where does that come from?
It actually says the chair has the authority to establish that.
These?
Yep. And actually, we're entering into a discussion, so those are posted there. You can read them if you'd like, but that's the rules. Thank you.
But the 2 minute timeline is not on these rules, and this right here is how the select board implements the open meeting law.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Seeing none, moving on. I'll look for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? That's my part now.
Aye.
Sorry. I was waiting for it to happen. All right. Consent calendar. I have some questions about the meeting minutes. We're definitely trying something new. How does everyone feel about how they're written now? I can see what we're trying to do. We're trying to get more detail. Does everyone think that they're clear enough to approve? I find them a little confusing at points too. There's like part sentences.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't clear that we were replacing the minutes with, I wasn't clear on the outcome, I guess. I thought the minutes had been how they're supposed to be, and then we were considering adding access to a transcript.
I know we talked about it,
Yeah.
but I didn't know we had like.
This is a hybrid model, basically, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
So there's operator and machine involved in the creation.
And I can go back to doing them the way they were.
I don't know if there's a happy medium there where there might be a little bit more of a summary of the conversation, but maybe not. I don't know. How do you feel, Larry? Because I feel like some of it got a little confusing because
I think once we get beyond the statutorily required depth that the minutes should give us, then we start getting into like gray areas of what should we include, what shouldn't we include. And once we start doing that, then it's a sort of an editorial call as to what should be there, and then it's going to be a lot more fraught, a lot more prone for things to get in there which aren't accurate. One of the wonderful things about this moment in time is that we do have the videos available for anybody to look at if they have deeper questions about what happened in a meeting, if they weren't able to be here in person, that they can actually go and see exactly what we said and how we said it and who participated. So
Yeah, I felt some of the things that I remember having conversations about, it was kind of summarized in a weird way that didn't quite reflect what was actually said, and that's where I think we're kind of getting too far into the, I don't know, like it's creating an authorized transcript of what happened, but it's not quite what happened because it's so detailed, but not, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, it seems like we, should just be able to say what happened at the meeting, and if folks are really interested in like the actual conversation, that people engaged in, then it's available. It's publicly, it's easy to access.
Yeah. Would we like to approve these as they are tonight and move forward differently, or would we like to see edits to this before we approve them? And are we within timeline? How are we in timeline of having an official meeting?
The draft minutes have to be available within a certain timeline. Action can take place.
So we can take like another week to,
Yep.
or maybe longer, because it's going to take some time to fix these up a little bit, I think. Okay. So if we're deciding as a board to edit these and bring them back at a future meeting, do we need an action? Or do we need to have a motion and all that?
Would you like to see a revised version of these? We'll try to include the extra clarity, and then if we can attach something to it or with it, or do you want to just leave the other part separate? How do you want to handle the requested trans AI helper thingy? Sorry, I ran out of the words there.
That's a great question.
And you don't have to decide that tonight. What we can do is bring them back in a way that fits some of the feedback.
Do we have any examples of other towns that are doing both? Or
I'd have to look off the top of my head.
That's okay,
I don't
yeah.
know.
I can
Yeah.
take a little look too. I imagine maybe some of the bigger towns have found a way to navigate it because they have more resources than we do. But yeah, I feel like they were almost misleading or confusing at times. Okay. So do-
Well, I think for me, it's also minutes are supposed to be a record of like actions, decisions, not everything.
Yeah, so you could almost argue, or you could argue that
harder
this is
to find
actually
the decision.
obfuscates the business of the board rather than making it more clear.
That's been me. I'm not against a transcript, but you can also access the video and see, have it. What's it called?
have it like transcribed from.
Yeah, like while you're watching it, so for accessibility. So,
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion about the meeting minutes because then we have warrants after.
Well, if we're going to wait to approve these, then we
Yeah, you haven't moved anything on the consent calendar, so just move approval of the warrants,
Okay.
and then we'll bring the minutes back, and you can take them up separately, or
Do we need to do a motion to ask you to do that though, or?
I think we have a
Just this
sense of where you're at.
conversation.
You can
Okay.
do a motion if you want, but
Okay, I just want to make sure we're checking all the boxes. Thank you.
so I make a motion to approve the warrants.
a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
It's weird to get used to saying that. Motion passes. So business, consider listers, errors, and emissions report and homestead changes report. Is Mimi?
hang on, you hear the foot
Oh,
steps?
Yep, okay, she's coming.
I have a question. I don't understand what just happened.
I think we've moved on to other business.
Sorry, what was that?
We already moved on to other business. I'm not sure we can go back.
I don't understand what's happening with the minutes.
We're asking them to be edited.
You're asking for, sorry, can you,
We're asking them to be edited before we approve them, so they've not been approved.
and why do they need editing?
Because of the discussion we just had that we don't think that they're clear.
Okay, what did you identify that's not clear?
All of it. Mimi, we're ready for you. Yeah, we just don't feel like they're clear enough.
Okay, so at what point are you guys going to be drafting the fixes to the meeting?
We don't have a timeline yet. And we've moved on to other business, so it's actually, we've already moved on, I'm sorry.
Well-
Mimi, it's your turn.
Okay. We have the Lister's errors and omissions report and homestead changes. Since our meeting, I received 2 current use changes and the final homestead change of the year. So those are in addition to what you signed in December. So you just need to sign that, sign and approve if you approve. But these weren't made by me, these were made by the state. So that's all for that.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna go back upstairs and work on my projects and come back for the budget.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So in order to approve those, do we need a motion, Trevor?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion on that or entertain a discussion.
Approving and signing the errors and omissions and homestead changes reports.
So moved.
A second.
Please move. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Business item B, consider appointments to boards, committees, and commissions. So we have the Planning Commission. We have 2 seats available on the Planning Commission, and I believe we have some of the folks here who applied.
I see Bill McGrath, Joe Kill,
I think Cody is here,
Cody's here.
and awesome. And Sarah. Thank you.
Yep.
I was trying to scroll down. Thank you. All
I
right.
listed them in alphabetical order, but you can take them in any order you want.
Thank you. I'm trying to scroll down. Okay. Awesome. All right, board, how do we want to handle this? We're going to interview them.
I think alphabetical order makes sense.
Great.
It's not biased.
Okay. So that puts, well, alphabetical or what? Last name?
By last name.
All right,
just-
Cody Armstrong.
Standard.
Your whole life you've been first, huh? Doesn't
A little
matter.
bit. So I'm Cody Armstrong. I live in Randolph Center off Rogers Road. Grew up in the area since I've been here since I was 3. My family's been here for 100 years. Grew up working on my grandmother's dairy farm, Messier Dairy Farm, and working with other farmers in the area. And went to Paul Smith's for college for 2 years, attended the local, Randolph public school system, and then went to Paul Smith's for 2 years and got an associate's there, and then came back, lived in Tunbridge for a year, but then now I got my family, my wife and 2 children, and I live in Randolph Center, and I have a small sugaring operation, and just want to be part of Randolph and make sure my kids can be here down the road and have it be a good place to live. So I just thought it might be good to get involved a little bit.
Do we want to ask questions and then move on, or should we do it, like, have everyone introduce themselves, or just ask questions and then move on to the next person?
Probably just one person
Yeah.
at a time.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Cody?
Might be nice just to ask all our applicants a little bit more about why they would like to be on the planning commission and what they think they'll bring to it.
I guess for myself, just having the ag background and just a different viewpoint. I don't really know much about the village, but grew up working on the farm and working with other forestry businesses in the area. So just pulling from those different backgrounds that isn't specific to the village, I guess, is what would be my #1 asset to bring to the planning commission.
Cody, have you had any chances to attend any planning commission?
I attended the last one
Okay.
via Zoom.
Yeah.
I think everybody had to plague at that point.
It's been hitting hard. Awesome. Do you have any thoughts about the town plan yet, or?
I looked through it briefly, and I have not all of it, but I started reading through it, and I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't have any specific thoughts, I guess, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Just as long as agriculture stays a focus, that's important to me, so.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have any other questions? Okay. And have you, I have one more, this is a good one. Have you served any other boards in the town at all, or any other places?
No, the only other thing I'm doing is I'm a member of the Vermont Sugar Makers Association. I'm the Orange County director, representative for the Orange County Sugar Makers on the state association board.
Okay, what does that do?
The actual role or the state association?
I guess both, yeah.
Yeah, it's just representing all the sugar makers in Vermont and making sure that, you know, helping all sorts of different facets, from answering questions for specific producers to advocating for, you know, grant money and different things where it applies, and dealing, you know, helping deal with rules and regulations or that might pertain to maple sugaring. It's a lot bigger industry than people realize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Very good. Okay, any further questions for Cody?
I just have one. Cody, can you talk some about your experience with the sugaring and with current use and those type of things when it comes to having a set of rules or helping to develop a plan of some sort, and working with it? Some of what the Planning Commission does is look at the state rules and develop like a town plan or a policy or those type of things.
Yep. Yeah, so the land that I have in Randolph Center, I have about 40 acres, and most of that, all but the 3-acre exemption, is enrolled in agriculture current use. And there's, you know, I know there's the two different types. There's agroforestry, and there's different rules that pertain to each one. The reason I went with the ag, you don't get as much of a tax break, but you don't have to be subjected to having a forestry plan that has to get renewed every 10 years. So, and the reason that was advantageous for me is, say for some reason, you know, you want to do something a little bit different with a corner of the land, you don't have to go run into the, you know, county forester to answer every single question. So having just a little bit more freedom to be able to utilize my land for different agriculture needs and not just strictly forestry. Like I have a little section of softwoods that would, maybe I'm slowly working at thinning it out, that would turn into pasture for, you know, some beef animals or something, versus if that's enrolled in forestry, then you have to stick to a pretty stringent plan and go through a lot more of a process to amend anything. So I've worked with that enough to know some of the rules that apply to that. And it's a great tool for people that actually utilize it in the right way, and it's working land. That's good to see.
Mm-hmm. Any further questions? Trini, do you have any further?
No, I'm good. I'm just trying to get to that like experience working with a set of laws and planning process and that stuff. And it sounds like he's done it if he's worked through the current use process and meeting some of the requirements for sugaring. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing about the ag side, is it's, you know, pretty lenient and open as far as the sugaring goes. But yeah, you got to make sure you're doing the proper management. You're not over tapping trees, doing too many holes in them each year, doing just proper stewardship and that sort of thing. And then making sure any like ag-related buildings, those can be enrolled, and, you know, making sure you're compliant with those different types of rules around that.
Okay. Awesome. Anything else you'd like to add, Cody? Okay. So then we'll call on Sarah. Hi.
Hi. I think I'm going to stand just because
That's fine.
I'm smaller than the person in hi, thanks for having me. I am also a Vermonter. I actually grew up right near the Messier's farm in East Randolph. Since then, I traveled for teaching. I've been a lifelong teacher So I moved to Thailand, Tanzania, China. I taught in the U.S. as well, and I moved back to the U.S. and I moved back to Vermont because I love Vermont. I moved back to Randolph because I love Randolph. And now my children are older and I have more time. And so I'd like to take the experience that I have and bring it to something that I feel is purposeful. Some of the experience that I believe that I would bring to the board is being a lifelong educator. I also worked for the Agency of Education. And in that work, there's a lot of statutory framework that I would work with. And I also served the Vermont Board of Education in that role, and also reviewed all of the institutions in the state of Vermont that offered educational programs, like teacher education programs. More locally, I served as the hazard mitigation grant coordinator following Hurricane Irene. So there's a fair amount of municipality legwork that goes on there that I think I could bring to the Planning Commission that would be really helpful. And I also have a fair amount of sort of just long-range planning and visionary picturing work that I've done at Dartmouth College. I've been there for over a decade, where I've developed a program that is now, it didn't exist before, and now there's 22 members, so that feels pretty good. And I think, I read the town plan, and in looking at that, I saw a lot of parallels to the things that I do, like the education background. We have a really great school system, and I'd love to do my part in, seeing that forward. Recently, I joined the Town Development Board to kind of, in hopes of protecting and growing our town in a really beautiful way, and for the reasons that I moved back, but also for future reasons and seeing that move forward. And obviously the hazard mitigation work has a lot of parallels to identifying reference points in different types of documents across the municipality and the state government. So yeah, any questions?
Well, I'll ask you, have you been to any of the Planning Commission meetings yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So did you say you're on the DRB right now?
No.
Oh,
no,
so what was the town development board you're talking about?
It's a recent one. It's the historical downtown. It's the preservation of that. There's a name for it, so it gets some state funding. It actually just was changed hands. It was governed by a different group, and they're trying to sort of regrow that and reinstitute that. And a lot of it is culture oriented as well. So some of the things that we do as a town for fun, but also maintaining some of the funding that we get for historic downtowns. And honestly, we haven't met once as a board yet. So more to come on that one.
Yeah, look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah. Did I use the right name?
Downtown board.
Downtown board.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions for Sarah? Trini, do you have any questions for Sarah?
I'm all set. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, and then Joseph Kill. Are you online, Joe?
It's about to pop up. There you go.
Hi, Joe.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. I'm feeding dinner to my children.
Multitasking. Nice. All right. When you have a chance, you can let us know a few things about yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm as good as I'm gonna get here. I'm Joseph Gill. I am also a Vermonter, born in Randolph, not intentionally back, but we found a nice house and here we are. Yeah. What else do you need to know?
Well, why did you apply?
Why am I interested in the Planning Commission?
Yeah.
I am interested in the Planning Commission because I really like the idea of the vision of moving things to a goal. As a grant writer, it's really important when you start out to have a picture of kind of where you want to go. Because that's the best way to, hey, stop that. Best way to write a plan is to know which direction you're going. Thank you. Let's take that. Hey, stop. Okay. So yes, I'm interested, and I have 2 young children. So I'm interested to help with the Planning Commission to also help to affect where the town's direction is to hopefully make their lives better as well.
And Joe,
All done.
I kind of know this answer because I've been looking, but you've attended quite a few of the Planning Commission meetings, correct?
Correct. Sorry, the dogs are barking. Yes, I think I've been attending since August or September. October was canceled. I found out in person. Oh, no. Don't put that back. Don't put that back. All right, all done. Yeah, so I've attended, I think, 4 or 5 at this point.
And there was a question I wanted to ask everyone. I forgot, so I'll go back in a second. But we also have an opening on the DRB. We don't have that on the agenda tonight. But if you weren't considered for the Planning Commission tonight, would you be interested in the DRB at all?
Maybe. It depends on it's honestly the meeting time is very convenient for the Planning Commission, which is one of the reasons I decided to take a look at it.
Gotcha. Great. Okay.
So
I'll come back to you.
maybe if the DRB meets at a similar amount of time, I don't mind doing things outside of the meeting, but the meeting time is really important because it's not easy to get childcare.
Heard.
I believe the DRB has a similar schedule where they meet on Mondays.
So Joe, the same kind of question of like, you said you wrote grants, which obviously has some type of rules or criteria, that type of thing, right? That you're answering when you apply for the funding. But have you ever done anything where you're taking, statutes and different pieces to implement something or write something?
Sorry, you broke up a little in there, in the middle there. You were saying something about writing something?
Have you ever done anything that uses, like where you're using state or federal statutes or anything, guidelines, those type of things, other than like grant criteria, but where you're having to develop something like our town plan has certain statute requirements when we develop it. Our policies have certain rules and whatnot we follow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of what I do is federal granting, so I understand where you're coming from is like, have you done something other than that? But a lot of what we do is ties into the law, like BABA, Build America Back Better. What I handled the most of is when the pandemic struck, I handled all the granting for the ARPA funding. And so the part of that was to develop actually a 3-year plan for the school district. Sorry, my daughter's on the table and trying to get my food. So we developed a 3-year plan for the school district to guide where we wanted that funding to direct us. And I was one of the forefront people because they didn't have enough staff to actually handle it. And so I kind of got pulled in to help. So actually that was probably my largest leadership writing experience that involved law and statute. But that was also really bizarre times. So I won't deny that that was not as standard and structured as it normally is. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. And you're right, it wasn't normal and it wasn't standard.
Yeah, so I'll acknowledge that.
Any other questions,
Sure. My name is Bill McGrath. I've lived in Randolph since 1995. So I guess it's 30 years. I came here because of VTC and I never left. I was the first person to be a faculty, staff, student, and resident director there. But anyway, later on, I started a business called LED Dynamics here in town. And we grew that business here for many years before we decided that we needed to build our own facility. And so I had the experience of going through and building a factory here in Randolph, which of course involved the not only municipal regulations, but Act 250 and everything to do with the state. And with the help of Green Mountain Economic Development, we were able to create that factory and keep the jobs here in Vermont, because we definitely had some pressure to move to New York or New Hampshire, but we kept the jobs here. And I apologize, I wanted to be there in person, but I went to Massachusetts today and I just didn't make it back in time. So my background that would be relevant, I think I originally wanted to be on the Planning Commission back in 2018 after building the factory here and seeing some of the challenges that we went through. And I was thinking the best way to fix something is to get involved and do something about it. At that time, there wasn't any openings, so I went on the Development Review Board, which I've been on for 6 years. And that's even been even more of an incentive for me to get involved with the Planning Commission, because we frequently run into challenges where things are vague or ambiguous, like what is the setback? Is it from the center line of the road, or is it from the right of way? Things that are just not clear in the regulations. So I've got quite a big file of things that I've amassed over the 6 years of challenges with the plan. When we got the new plan, I was hoping that some of those things would be addressed, and they were, but not everything was. And so there's still a lot of places where it's very confusing to people who are trying to follow the rules when the rules aren't clear. So the best way to, fix something is get involved and do something about it. And that's why I was interested in the Planning Commission. And it's it's something I would really like to be able to help town with.
Have you had a chance to go to any of the meetings recently, Bill?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Have you had a chance to go to any of the meetings recently?
I have not been to the Planning Commission meetings because I'm always going to the Development Review Board meetings, but no, I have not been to the Planning Commission meetings.
Yeah. Well, I won't ask you if you'd consider an appointment to the DRB in place of the Planning Commission. That one seems a little obsolete. But how about everybody else? Any questions here?
I thought Bill did a great job of telling us all about himself.
Yeah, that hit all my questions for sure. Alyssa, do you have anything? Molly? Trini?
Hang on. Yep, I'm good. I've known Bill for quite a while, and I worked with him on the project to build his facility, so he definitely knows the rules and regulations and how to work through them, so I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So, do we want to discuss these in executive session then? Is that how we would want to do this?
I think that's been our recent practice.
Okay.
Usually when you have appointments and you have more than one candidate, we put it on. Sometimes you've used it, spent a little bit, sometimes you haven't. So when you get to that item on the agenda, you go in, it's a 2-motion one, find that it's necessary because it's one of the ones that requires a finding. You go in, you could discuss them. When you come out, that's when you'd make the appointments. You don't make those in executive session. So if you want to do that then, we have that scheduled for later.
Yeah.
And I forgot to follow up. Cody, would you be interested in the DRB as well?
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Okay. And how about you, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Any further discussion?
I would just like to say that it's wonderful to have so much interest in the Planning Commission. We've had trouble having a full slate for a while now. So it's great that we're going to be full again, especially as we go to create the new town plan, where we really do need a lot of energy and attention. But I also want to say, and this goes for all of our town committees, everybody is always welcome to come to the commission meetings, to town committee meetings, whether you're an official member or not. And my experience, having spent a lot of time on these committees, is that, you know, your voice as someone who's not an official member is just as valuable as the folks on the commission or on the committee. You just don't get to vote, but you get to have input. And usually that's the most important part, because the vast majority of the time when we have decisions that are made by the various committees and commissions, they're usually consensus anyway. It's not like the vote, you know, your particular vote is going to make it go one way or the other. That's extremely unusual. The most important thing that people can do is show up and participate. So given that we have 2 spots and 4 people have applied, 2 people are going to be disappointed. Maybe it's going to be the folks who actually get appointed, right? But hopefully not. But I just want to say that even if you're not appointed, please come to these meetings if you're interested and you feel like you have something to contribute. The Planning Commission, of which I'm the liaison for the Select Board, so I go to all those meetings. We want to hear from you. And I'll just put it out to the public in general. If you're interested in what we're doing in any of these commissions and committees, please show up. Your voice is valuable.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to the next. Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate your input and your time. So I think we're on to Mark. Consider acceptance of grants, 4 total.
I dragged Mark back in. He's not feeling great.
Oh,
He's
no.
been dealing with 3 of these grants, probably most directly. And just in case you had questions about them, I thought it would be nice to hear from him, given that he's pulling that dual shift.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're good.
Thanks for coming.
Okay.
All right. Would you mind giving us a quick rundown of everything here? So.
Sure. There are 4 grants before you that have all been awarded to the town of Randolph. The first of which is the Building Communities Grant under the Recreational Facilities. That is an award for $25,000. The objective is to create a network of accessible trails across the 34-acre town-owned recreation area. This will connect major facilities to ensure inclusive recreation for the community. There's 4 phases to the project. The funding is for 2 phases, and the grant has there's a match that's required, and this was when Milo was the rec director. We sat down with Trevor. We figured the funds for the match were in the reserve for the rec department, and so it was a great win. There were only 4 awards that were given the match, the full grant, and Randolph was one of them. So that was a big win for us. Before I move to the next one, are there any questions with the Building Communities Grant itself?
I see none.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
The Historic Preservation is a much needed grant for Chandler Center for the Arts for roof restoration. That includes repairing all the broken slate, the cracked slate, missing slate, securing some of the stuff that's still okay but needs to just be reestablished. The maintenance of Chandler is a very important component for all of us. There hasn't been a lot of work that's been done on it for the last 6 or 7 years, so there are a lot of things that are cropping up. The town, there hasn't been a lot of reserves set aside for this. So I also to clarify, I'm the board president for Chandler Center for the Arts, as well as the economic development director for the town. So I'm wearing 2 hats here. On the board, we decided that it was best for the town to apply for this grant for many reasons, but also for the board to play a more active role, to see what's going on, to talk to you guys and keep you updated updated. There's a match for this grant that's $20,000. The board at Chandler had voted to that Chandler would be paying the match. The project is about $60,000. So we are, we can complete the work of securing all the slate and doing that. We do need to raise a little bit more money, but the project is a go. We'll get it done. But it's an opportunity for the select board to start talking a little bit more, if you want, about the reserves and some of the needs for the deferred maintenance for the building. Is there any questions on the historic preservation grant?
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Mark, I haven't seen anything on this grant. Was there anything that came to us about what the grant is or what the grant agreement is or what we're being asked to sign on for?
Yeah, everything was, I can send a packet over to you. No, I didn't. It came up kind of sudden, and Trevor and I talked about it, and because Chandler was going to let me answer that in two parts. One is there's no long-term easement or there's no language in the grant agreement that would that was a red flag for Trevor. And Trevor, you can help me here if it's been a while, but we reviewed the language in the grant agreement, and it matched more closely with the 5-year agreement that we had agreed to with one of the more recent ones we did with Chandler. So Trevor was okay with us applying for it, but I do have the packet, which includes all that documentation, and we can send it over to you, Trini, if you want to see it. But Trevor had a chance to look at the language in terms of what the agreement was for the town, and he was, if I remember right, he was okay with that because it didn't have any, there was no perpetual or easements, the type that has been a challenge for you historically.
Is there like a due date that we have to approve this by in order to get it? Or is there a little bit of
yes, the due. I think that one we need to sign up on it by February. I think the second week of February. So I could get it to Trevor, and you guys can look at it next week if that's possible.
You'll have a grant item
okay
next week too. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
part of why we have this multi-part process too, so that we don't miss application windows, but then there's always this check before there's any sort of acceptance of a grant.
Yep.
And Mark, you said the match money you don't have it yet, but there's a plan for it?
We do have it. We have it in our reserves at Chandler Center for the Arts.
Okay.
And what we are hoping to do is raise another $20,000 to get the last phase of the project completed, which is the work on some of the water, what do you call them, gutters around Chandler. They're big, and sometimes, as they wear out, you get those massive icicles in the front of the building, which is a risk for everybody. So we tried to do some of it ourselves, but the grant will cover the cost of cleaning that up and restoring those, the gutters, so they look really nice in the front and they're functional.
Thank you.
Okay. Municipal.
Any other questions on the historic preservation? Okay, so the municipal planning grant is absolutely awesome. We tried to get this in the spring and we were declined. We applied again. We won $16,000. There's a 10% match for the community for the town of Randolph, so that'd be $1,600. The work is to do everything that's already started. We have a 2-year agreement with Rethink Local. Alex Torpy is working closely with Trevor on the Planning Commission with the town plan. You're going to hear a lot more about that starting next week. So if you sign off on this, the funds will actually cover a significant, if not all, of the costs associated with redoing the town plan.
Okay. In the parking, any other questions about that right now, guys? Okay. Municipal park and ride grant.
Yep, this was one that you saw before we asked permission. This is for the South Pleasant Street parking lot that's been in need of some kind of attention for a while. It's through the state program. They try to award funds to everybody who applies, so that's why we asked for more of the project share, but there are other applicants, so they split it out. So we got about $72,000. That gives us about 140 that we'll look to pay for out of our stormwater reserve that has a healthy balance. And this will update stormwater systems, we'll do pavement, we'll do lighting, there'll be better line marking, doesn't change anybody's access to the number of spaces, it just will better delineate them and bring that up to the standard, be a little bit easier to maintain. We'll take care of some of the vegetation that tends to grow up around the edges into the parking lot or as part of the parking lot.
Awesome.
So it offsets some of the costs, even though it's not as much as we applied for. I think we were closer to, say, 50-50 share. The application was a while back.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were still leaves on the trees when we did a site visit, so I don't remember the date, but I remember that.
All right. Trini, do you have any questions right now? Or does anyone else on the board have any other questions? Okay. Any other questions? Anybody? Yes, please state your name for the record.
Scott Berkey. Just clarification, is it on a South Pleasant Street parking lot or the Pleasant Street parking lot behind the Herald?
Behind the Herald, yep, sorry. It's in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I would like to see the historic preservation grant paperwork before we move forward with that. That's my preference. Since we have time to hold off on that and get a little bit more clarification. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'll entertain any motion.
A motion to accept the 3 grants not inclusive. Hold on. I have to scroll through. And authorize the town manager to sign the grant agreement.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion passes. Do we need to hear Trini's vote verbally?
Only if she disagrees with you, in which case it'll be a roll call vote because you're not all present.
Okay. Trini, did you? She's an aye. Okay. 5 ayes. All right, moving on. Let me scroll back up to the agenda.
Thank you, Mark. Sorry to drag you out.
Thank you, Mark.
That was
Appreciate your
very
help.
helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Have a great night.
Feel better?
Go back to bed.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on to FY27 proposed budget overview. Proposed FY27 budgets. It's your
Say
turn.
into the Zoom as well because Mimi, John, and Scott are all hanging out upstairs. It's time to come downstairs. If they
Yeah.
would, please. We'll see how well they're paying attention.
I think Scott was at the top of the stairs.
So I'll pull this up, and what we'll do really quickly is we'll run through sort of an overall summary, just so you've seen this page, you saw this in December, and then we'll go into the general fund, the highway fund, and the police fund. I'll probably start with that page 2 of the budget document, which is the snapshots, the expenditure snapshots page, because it gives you a pretty good sense of where the different changes, pressures, opportunities are in each of those funds. It's not an inclusive list. It's only expenditures, and it's looking at what we try to think were significant changes, and we try to, at the bottom, note what that standard was, just if something looked new, different, had a large percentage, had a large dollar amount, was a new service, discontinuance, debt service, whatever it might be. So you had a sense of what was in each one of them. And then we'll go through the categories in the general fund. Mimi can talk about the lister's budget. Tammy was also supposed to be here tonight, but the illness swept through and got her today. So I'll be handling that one. and the buildings and grounds. Fire's the only set of budgets we're not going to do tonight out of the general fund. We'll do those probably next week, possibly on the 29th. We've got to coordinate with the chiefs. Special appropriations haven't been updated. I called this out in the packet. I've called it out a couple of times. The deadline was today for those petitions to be submitted. We know there are some increases that have been asked for. So when you see this sheet next week, that number will be north of that. We usually put it into the budget as requested, and that will factor into any of the calculations on impact, total spending, those types of things. The special appropriations are 100% property tax, so it all falls to that category. So we'll go through highway fund, we'll do the different sections there. John will join us for that. We'll go through police fund. Scott will join us for that piece. And so we have pulled together our crew of walking wounded that we can for these budgets that we have, and we'll go through these. At the end of each fund and at the end of the 3 funds, if you have stuff that you want to see, modeling you want done, things you want considered, things you want to see cost for, things you want more information on, let us know, because we'll be sort of grinding this out. The calendar's getting compact. You have tonight, next week, and the week after. The 29th we have set as the date to warn town meeting. I think you have until Saturday technically, but if we can leave a little more time from when you finish most of your work and when we approve the warning, and make sure that there aren't any issues with numbers, references, stuff on the warning, because once that's set, there's no good way to change that, if any way at all. So that's sort of the basic rundown. I sent an email over to Ken, so at some point I got to connect with him and his group. With this copy in it, we'll send any updates we get. This was way late a little bit when I went down with the crud. To apologize that we're a little bit behind where we'd hoped to be schedule-wise. I will do better and not get sick next budget cycle. I will improve.
We'll hold you to that.
Yep. I will improve my immune system. So same sheet that you saw last time just gives a snapshot overview of where 27 is, where it is in relation to prior fiscal years, dollar changes, percent changes. You can see the general funds around where inflation would be for state and local government, and around where general inflation would be. He has to sit next to me so he doesn't get nervous and fall down on the ground.
Welcome to the corner.
How we doing?
And so that one fits within there. You can see the highway fund, we're up closer to 8%. When we get into that, what you'll see is almost all of that increase is in the operating supplies, the materials, particularly for winter maintenance and for gravel road maintenance. There's a few other categories that are up there as well. Library fund, you'll be getting that one at a future meeting. Special probes, like I mentioned, we'll have that number updated for next week with the petition amounts that come in. Police district's up 12.5. This is tied to staffing and trying to get to a roughly 4.5 officer footprint, not counting chief, who is still pulling a lot of shifts as well. So he's in the mix, 4.5 officers. So that's one where it's mostly personnel costs. And then we're going to end the whole thing at some point with Chris doing the water and wastewater funds, and those are up different amounts. For each one, we'll go through what some of those pressures are in each of those budgets. So like I said, we'd go to this snapshot page. I apologize if there's no, I can shrink it and get the whole thing to fit, and then nobody will be able to see anything. Or we can leave it a little big and you can see a little bit more, and I'll scroll back and forth, so I apologize for any dizziness. So just in the general fund, it's a mixture of things where we've got some money. There's some reductions from the year before, some pretty sizable ones, and then there are some increases in there where we've added, we've either augmented positions or we're thinking about adding new positions, and I'll explain the first one in a minute and how that ties to the grant manager position that we talked about too. You can see that we're down health insurance. That's a pretty big decrease from the year prior. That's about the change in employee mix. An employee leaves who's on a family plan, is replaced by one who's on a single buyout. That alone is close to a $36,000 swing in terms of what our premium share is. Yeah. So that's the margins are sort of that lean in terms of how much. Orange County, still a guess. We reached out to get our exact number. We've seen their budget warning, but not what the individual allocation was. They're around $72,000, I believe, in the. Make sure I got some. Yeah, it came in around 72 for fiscal 25. changes at the sheriff department resulting in a reduction in services, dispatch services, some of these other costs that had been in when we were up around 110, 120 per year. That helped lower that cost. Plus, doing reappraisal, changing the CLA. At one point, we were hit with almost a pre-reappraisal penalty. If you want to wind Mimi up, she can get wound up. Poke at that one a little bit. The planning and zoning one is down because we've switched to a contract model. As Mark had referenced, we've had Alex. We're going to be entering year 2 of that agreement, and so those are the costs associated with that. One thing to revisit there in that planning and zoning line that's not in this draft that I just want to call out, get you thinking of, we've talked about a planning and zoning software platform to help people apply to track. That's got an $8,000 to $10,000 cost. We're working to pin down what it is, get the best cost for this. This goes back, we've been looking for one of these, meeting with multiple vendors for been a while at this point. So we'll probably put that one in there for you to consider at some point, or at least put something before you that would go in that line, so that would add a little bit. To this one, debt services is only up a little bit. We had $140,000 come off. Some of this is tied to what we want to do eventually with fire station payments and stuff like that. And then you can see the assistant clerk treasurer is up quite a bit. That is not money for an individual. That includes a 13 to 15 hour a week position. If you've noticed, Rose has been helping out in there when you've come in, helping catch up with recording, digitization, doing customer service front of the house stuff. So it keeps her in that role moving forward, provides additional support to Tammy, and has helped sort of augment office hours. And they have nearly caught up with the recording. They are making progress on some of the digitization stuff, so this will help us keep grinding at those and get caught up. As we get into the highway fund, as I'd mentioned earlier, a lot of these increases that you'll see are going to fall. You can kind of see this section here. This is a misprint. That should actually be, got to fix that in the table. It is not up $95,000, it's up 20. This is a $75,000. That's a misprint, we'll get that. So don't freak out, that one's not really that, but it is a $20,000 increase from year to year there for vehicle repairs and maintenance. Road salt's the single biggest expense that's increasing in the highway budget. We've referenced this and mentioned this to you a couple times now. We went from $82 a ton, $80 a ton.
84 to 109.
Wow.
This year.
And we're expecting that number not to come down. And so even if we use 1,800 tons of salt in an average year, so we've had to dial back both the usage, which this envisions, moving to a safe roads at safe speeds policy, which we've started to implement following the state's policy that's been in place since the 70s, and trying to be more judicious with use, but even still with that, because we have a substantial amount of road, both paved and gravel. And then you can see in debt service, this is tied to, I believe there was a bond from 2005 for Chelsea Mountain Road, and this was the portion of that. It's assigned a few places. There only 2 very minimal increases in reserves because we were already up closer to, as you can see, we're close to 8% with that. So a little bit more in paving, and then with the sidewalk reserve, because we just got the sidewalk inventory back, we've got some rough order of magnitude cost. We've got a trio of projects. So when we get to that sheet, we can go through those and then start to plug in the inventory, looking at some of those red sections, other sections, take advantage of where we want to do work. And plug those in. So at one of those later meetings, we'll go through that sheet. There's an augmented version of the capital sheet you saw in December. Quickly, we added a few items after some conversation and built out some of the pieces. And then here in the police fund, most of it is tied to trying to get to that 4.5 officer marker. Currently, we are rolling this week with, we'll say, less than 2. People on duty and pulling shifts. One's on an extended medical leave. One is deployed overseas. One is off, forced plan time off. Even with just the 2 or the 2+, it's been very difficult to continue to cover shifts. If we can't cover them, it leaves state police. That level of response is also variable based on their staffing, call volume, where they've got to be. Health insurance increases just because we're presuming those bodies are going to come on and that they're going to take. Usually when we budget for new employees, we try to put them sort of in our mid-tier category so that they're a two-person plan or a two-person with children. They're about the same cost in terms of our premium contribution. I think it's $20,000-ish each for that. And so we sort of mark those there. And so we get down through some of the rest of it, but we can cover some of that in more detail. But those are the sort of category overviews for the three funds that you've got tonight. Like I said, significant changes are really just if there's a difference from last year, and I'll fix that one number. What line am I on here? Yeah, line 20. Most of what you do when you look at the budgets is focus on the expenditure end of things. We do also have the revenue end of things. There aren't really a lot of variables in terms of the sources. The general fund has more of them than any of the rest of them, and that's where a lot of the fees come from. State payments for different services. If we charge for various things, dog licenses, for example, vital records, those types of pieces. So you'll see recreation programming revenue shows up in this section. When we get to some of the other funds, you'll see that list of sources shrink considerably. So this is probably one of the more diverse revenue streams, but generally we sit between 70 and 80% of how we pay for things are with the property tax, depending on the fund. It can be more for some funds and a little bit less for others. This does have a property tax rate, property tax to be raised by taxes associated with it. The way we calculate that is we take the total budget, total up all the non-tax revenue we're projecting, figure out what's left. That's the amount that's to be raised by taxes. That gets divided by the grand list, and we try to estimate what that is, but you don't really know that number until probably August when the grand list has been lodged. We know if it's changed. April you've lodged it, but August we set the rate.
August.
And that's when you sort of know exactly what it is going to be. So this is all kind of forecast. So we could miss one side or the other when we project anything other than, even if we project the number as it is. There's a little bit of a grand list growth increase factor baked into all of the stew for this. The challenge with that is that if we somehow miss that 2%, tax rate could be a little bit higher because we've got a little bit less to divide by to raise. If we make out the other side and it's 2 plus, moves in the other direction as well. There are no real changes. There are new revenue sources. There's nothing radical. This DMU revenue grant we used to host through a multi-year grant program. There's a mobile hospital the Department of Health has to respond to emergencies. They have found another place to home that, I think, in a state facility, so they don't need to rent a bay over at the fire station like they used to. Everything else we're projecting to be pretty stable. When we set these, we encourage folks to look at about 3 years, consider any changes in cost, any changes in fees. So you can see everything's pretty standard, pretty stable. Some of this reflects sort of timing, staffing, some of the other things. I suspect next year's product will have quite a bit more build up based on our ability to cover more ground. You see in the clerk fees, there's some increases here based on levels of activity. What Tammy thinks is reasonable, so mostly in the dog licenses and marriage licenses. And then there's some administrative transfers. We haven't looked at these in a really long time. This is also not a year we do, but at some point we should look at the administrative charges to say, do we need them? Are they set right? What do they cover? Who do they pay for? Those types of things. But that exercise is not part of 27 at this current time. So as we come down into the detail, the first section is all of the executive expenses. We've talked about adding a grants manager position. We've talked about adding different pieces, having some conversations kind of in the in-between. This is a half year for what would be an assistance manager position. They would take that on, communications, project management, customer service. We'd load them right up with stuff, writing and research. It would really extend the capacity. Then you could use manager spot in different directions, bigger projects, overall management. We've got recruitment and retention. We're going to try to add on, build out. Judy's taking on more of the HR stuff. We should reflect that in some way. And so as we try to build out, so then there is more time and capacity. We also want to build more organizational resilience. The grants piece has eaten a lot of Mark's time. I'm not going to say that's why he got sick, but that has actually sucked up quite a bit of his time since Jeff has been gone, just in trying to wrap up stuff that was underway and make sure we're managing those pieces. We are, as the week's highlighted, somebody gets sick, that can really disrupt services. And we can build in a way where that doesn't have to be the case. And so this puts it in for half a year. I did a half year because I was trying to keep the overall increase for the general fund around inflation, or close to it. And this all sort of plays out. Our retirement calculations are based off what's in here. I say this every year and I want to point it out again. Our retirement, our employer contribution is nearly 17%. Because we are one of 3 municipalities that participates in the state VSERS F, or F star, I forget, there's 2. One's just for employees who started before a certain date. Bethel and Danville are the only other 2. The decision made many years ago. Everybody else is in VEMRs. For comparable pools, our employer contribution rate would be probably around 8%. I didn't look at the rates before I came in. They've been in the 7-8% range. So every time we write that retirement check, that 16.85% or whatever it is right now. That factors in. It's a good retirement system. It's a pension. It's nice for folks to have. It is portable. You can transfer in and out of state pools, VEMR's pools, but it's sort of a cost pressure that's baked in. Part of why it's so high and why we're so far ahead of some of the other state employee groups ties to collective bargaining. It ties to representation. It ties to how, in trying to get the pension funds to the levels they need to be after years, through the 90s in particular of underfunding, in order to meet certain thresholds, they've set a long-term plan, and so that's boosted our rates. First year I got here, we were closer to 10% and received a notice, I think in the fall, that we were jumping up to around 17%. So there was an unplanned change, at least in terms of the budget back in 21. But how we find out plenty of time, we're able to plan for it. It may even eventually go down. They just haven't done those calculations, I think, yet. We get the letter from the treasurer's office is sort of where we get these things. That's where they're set. Health insurance I'd mentioned before. That's really a change in employee, basically, is the difference in terms of the options they take. Sometimes when you see everybody's at a 3.25% rate increase from where they are currently. When you see larger numbers than that, what you're probably capturing is the time difference between when we set the 25 budget, the rate we hired somebody at, and the rate you see in 26. So when you compare 25 and 26 in some cases, you'll see it. Finance director, though, there's some different responsibilities we've thought about putting there depending on different models we've talked about internally for how we provide service. You'll see with the rec director, it's not because they're getting that larger one. It's 3.25% from where they are. They just were hired somewhere different based on market factors and the time they entered the stream. And some of them we always look at total employee costs. So sometimes when you see a salary that's up and we've asked them to do more, it's offset by other costs. We're actually paying less for a position in the proposed budget than we were in the one that passed when it was staffed because of the health insurance piece alone. So we look at overall costs, capabilities, talent, those kinds of things too. What are you going to bring to the table? What can you offer? As we scroll down, legal services looks like it's up. It was called out in a snapshot. We spend about $8,000, or we budget about $8,000 a year. We haven't generally spent close to that. We have a few other legal lines in different spots. There's one in the police line, as you'll see when we get there. But that's up because we have $8,000 in there for collective bargaining support. We're going to go back out, negotiate with the 2 unions. We particularly like that assistance when we go through and do police contracts part 2. We think it would be useful. It will help us make sure that we're in the right shape. So they'll provide help with language, with research, with any other guidance, with negotiation tactics, so we get the best product we can. It's a nice to have, not a need to have, but we've talked about maybe augmenting in that manner. It wouldn't just be turning it over to somebody. They would This would help with assistants that'd be in the room, but we'd still have whoever our designated person is be the functional lead. Moving down, $20,000 for professional services. This has 3 pieces to it. This is a new line. There's $10,000 in there for pay and classification and staffing study. Basing that amount on Montpelier went and did one that was focused mostly on staffing levels, and that was around $6,000-7,000. So it's not making a joke about the viral meme. I just realized I did the kids honest. And so we're thinking about 10. If obviously we can't do that, we'd focus on the pay and class piece and lose the staffing assessment, because that's the piece we really need. Where are we for each job position with our benchmarked communities, and where should we be? Where adjustments needed, and this provides an outside professional data-driven look, so then we can then say, all right, these folks need to be moved in accordance with that. There's also $5,000 in there for a pilot program for mediation services. We've talked about splitting the cost with Rethink Local. A lot of what we get into zoning, oftentimes what lands on Scott door, sometimes what comes into, when people come to see Judy and I, what we're talking about are neighbor disputes or other sort of community level disputes, interpersonal things. If we can handle those through a different way, so we're not to a regulatory environment, we're not using law enforcement resources, we can get neighbors to better outcomes. That would be ideal. So it pays for Alex to potentially go through some training. We'd split the cost. There's a few other startup costs. $5,000 is a bit of a wild guess estimate. It's probably a little high based on the cost for the program and our 50% share, but I wanted to start with enough to pull that off. The other $5,000 that's in that line is for an engineering services agreement. When we need to go out and write RFPs for projects, it's pretty patchwork, it's pretty piecemeal. So we've got a bridge project coming up, for example, on North Randolph Road. We know a lot of random stuff, but bridge specifications in an RFP in a way where they can sort of be built, project estimating, some of those engineering level services, where we can get through a contract model that can be on call, that can help with development review. There's a few different things. We've talked about this on and off, I think, every year that I've been here. I imagine it's come up since Marty left, because she used to fill a lot of these roles in terms of some of these engineering pieces based on her ability. The green highlight is because I understand the conversation about fireworks.
Trevor, before you move on, we have talked about how outside engineering support for a long time. I think it makes a lot of sense. $5,000 seems like that would get spent in an instant for those kinds of specialized services. So how'd you get that number? It was when we added the mediation services, is we had just the 2, and I just wanted to keep it at the 20 and split the difference. So originally I had thought 10. I was basing that on a built-out model from when I did an ESA agreement out in the Mad River Valley. And so what that covered, the types of services, that we got there. And if you sort of calculate it out from 21 to today, you'd be closer to 10,000. I think that agreement was in the $7,500 range. Would have gotten us started. We'd be pretty targeted. Some of the projects we might use this for we could offset some of the cost of grants depending on where we decided to go. But it was really just to put the marker down in the sand so we could have the conversation about it. I think it'd be a valuable service. I do agree that $5,000 probably goes pretty fast. And so we'd have to be really careful with how we use it if it stays at that amount. But wanted to put all of those things in there so that you could at least consider whether or not you like the idea first, and then sort of what your threshold is for what the costs associated could be. But yeah, I think probably 10 to 12 might be more. And even then, we're still being pretty judicious. Mm-hmm. And this, did I hear you right? The mediation services fee, money for that is concerning training for staff mostly? Well, so that we would train someone to become a mediator. We've thought about splitting it with Alex through the Rethink umbrella, because if you go all the way back to when we started that service, we were talking about, can we build something, provide services here, right? The ones we need, the zoning administrator services, the planning commission support, but are there ways to essentially, I don't want to say regionalize, but can we kind of expand sort of that service footprint, provide a new model
and will be the sort of the test case. And if this mediation service works and we put him through an appropriate training for that, so he, skills, experiences, framework set up, we sort of share the workload and the cost, and that could be a portable service too, one that we could, end up with some kind of commissioner, however we structure the agreement in terms of, since we've got all the carrying costs, and put a partnership that we could then export a little bit. But we need to try it, make sure it works. We think it would be valuable based on the types of complaints that come in, the feedback, the issues that pop up.
Yeah, no, it sounds great.
Yeah.
I know. I've used mediation services in the past and found it to be extremely helpful and a whole lot less expensive than involving lawyers and courts and things like that.
Yeah, and it would just be people. It would be voluntary. We'd make it as an offer if somebody still had an issue with a neighbor and it looked like a potential zoning violation. There's still sort of the other enforcement chains in certain circumstances, if warranted. It just gives us a different set of tools.
No, that's good for all. It's a step towards a healthier community if people are sitting down talking to each other rather than just being told, you did this wrong and now you're going to have to fix it, and we don't care what you think. That's just the end of our conversation.
Yeah, and it fits skill sets, interests. I think starting it in this manner makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
You feel like 5,000 is a good starting point for that?
Yeah, it's more than enough to cover half the cost, and then I don't know that we'd need supplies, but we've not done this. The idea would be we'd bookmark that, and anything we didn't need, I would probably look to throw toward the ESA within that line. But so those are in there for your consideration. The highlight there is because the fireworks came up in a meeting previously. Cost seems to be around $20,000. There was some talk, I think, at that meeting and in other places about should it be somewhere, where does it go, is it a separate question, is it something we don't touch? It's not in here, but that line is there. If we put it into the general fund budget, it would be July 4th activities, unless you want to have fireworks in October, I guess, but which you can do. It's the same
give
cost,
us the flexibility, honestly.
You don't get an off-season discount for having
I don't think so. They're pretty expensive.
They're technically probably would be scheduled on the 3rd of July, though. I think that's how it's been, or have we been the 4th lately? I don't know, whatever. But, so I met with some folks that normally organize it, and they're looking at $20,000 this year for the show overall, and they'll need a deposit. I think we're holding off for town meeting day of half of it. I'm willing to do legwork to see if we could get some donations from some of the folks who have traditionally sponsored that in the past. I did talk with Andy Bent, and the fire department, they lose money on it if they pay for the fireworks show, but they are willing to do the parking most likely. I shouldn't commit that. He is going to go to his folks and talk to them, but he thought they might be interested in that. So yeah, I guess that was, I asked Trevor how to best fit this in, since I want to make sure we at least try to get the fireworks happening. I think it's important and positive thing for our community. And I am, like I said, I think we could probably raise some of the money. I don't think we have to have the whole $20,000 coming out of town budget. But if the town were wanting to sponsor it in some way, we might want to just decide how much. I don't know if tonight's the night for that discussion, but
I just didn't want to lose it. And then you really have, there's sort of two basic choices. Put money in the general fund budget for it in this line, whole part or whatever, or it could be a separate question that you ask on a warning, and you just leave it to the voters to determine whether it's a full or a half. And so just by the end of the process, we'll have to know.
Okay.
If you want to do one or the other, and if you don't want to do either one, I think there are still some questions about ownership. Like there's some logistical things that'll have to be worked out at some point too, about who owns the event, who.
Right. Yep.
Who's got the contract with the fireworks? You know what I mean? The fireworks vendor, liabilities, insurance. Just make sure everything's where it needs to be.
Yeah, there would definitely be a little
those
bit of
on
insurance costs too, depending on how that's structured and who's the carrier of the insurance, I think. And those are some big Trevor questions, I think, logistically. If we would, so there might be some insurance cost.
Would deputize you. Okay. There you go.
But I think insurance would probably be fairly minimal, sorry.
Has the money from the parking, has that gone towards paying for the fireworks?
So back in the day, I think that's my sense is that's how it was structured. But then the fire department, the cost of the fireworks went up so much, and people weren't parking there, and so they were losing money on it. So it's supposed to originally be some of a fundraiser and a community event, and so then that became a struggle. And then some folks in town kind of spearheaded, and I don't know the whole history there. And it's been a little bit more privately funded and put on, sort of, in collaboration. And so I think there are some folks out there that would still be willing to provide some funds to help make it happen. And when that happens, the cost of fireworks is covered, and the fire department does the parking, and then they take that money towards their nonprofit to raise money for their things. So it was somewhere like it's between $1,000 and $2,000 they get from parking. So it's not very significant when we're talking about $20,000 for fireworks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not a moneymaker.
It's not how they pay for the UTV.
So yeah.
So select board budget, this is where the big money is. We're projecting no raises for you. The only real change here is town reports. We've been working with Repro Graphics for years. There's a slight uptick in some of the materials costs, so we're just anticipating that. We've printed fewer and fewer each year. We did not reduce the number again this year because last year they all did go, or close to it, and that hasn't been typical in prior years. Even when we've lowered the numbers, we've ended up with boxes and boxes of town reports.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if we ran out, we could print them on demand, correct?
We get a PDF version of it, we post that on the website, and we could always print some out, so we're never really out. Yeah. Plus, we'd always have the proof that went to the printer.
So we could reprint if it
So
was
we could
early
print
enough.
a version of it, it just wouldn't be fully formatted, you know.
Just in case, yeah. I'd rather, yeah.
So we have different ways to extend the supply if we had a run on them. We'll do fire when they come in. There's relatively small increases, equipment, a few other places. Wages, you'll see, look like dollar amount and percentages. We're not talking significant hourly increases. What our volunteer firefighters are making, it's far south of 20, right? And I mean, they make very little for how many calls they go on. I think I even just gave you a big number, but so when the chiefs are in, you can learn all about that. Recreation, everything's fairly standard in the personnel. We're not making any big changes. Maintenance personnel, we have some part-time seasonal hours here. Just as we think about how to allocate resources, that's down a little bit. There are some other salary-based increases, like I mentioned. Some of them are based on where somebody was hired, so if it looks bigger, it's still the same percentage based on where they started. Down in the slide over here. And these sections, Marlon made some telecommunications and other services switches, so he's able to get that number down. Just in terms of I provide phone service, getting different deals, internet services, a few other operating supply increases throughout here, a little extra training development. We'd like to have multiple certified pool operators, both in the department and without. Another resiliency measure. We, a couple of years ago, or 3-4 years ago now, found ourselves in a spot where we were trying to open the pool. And the guy had been the operator for years, had a medical event, wasn't able to do it. And it turned out that there were pieces of information with different people, but no one had started the pool up. So there was a consortium of 6 plus a vendor on a phone trying to get the pool operating. And it eventually worked, but was sort of not sustainable and less than ideal. We haven't had that problem since. We've had pool operators, we've had a pool director, we figured some other stuff out. But to have a few others do it, I've asked for volunteers. There might be some volunteers at some point, but
Buildings and grounds, no real changes here in any of these. Seasonal helps down. We had some extra capacity there. We have one guy pretty much who does 50%, 2 full-timers, and then the supervisor. So no real changes in our footprint there. We do contract out the East Randolph and Randolph Center cemeteries. We're still under that one. We went out, bid that out. We'll have to go through that cycle again over the summer and into the fall. Plan that for the next budget year because I think we're at the end of that agreement. So that's when you see mowing contracts. It's for those 2 cemeteries. We used to do it all in-house. This has been more effective and cost-effective. And so we've gone with that for years. Other items sort of remain as they are. What's weird about the buildings and grounds budget is they have a little bit of cost assigned to everybody else based on the budgets for both throughout the general fund and a few other areas. So you see fire department buildings, landfill building, park area, this building obviously. So it's a little bit of a catch-all. But no real changes there, small overall increase. I mentioned earlier on the zoning piece is down. This is where we put that zoning permitting software, somewhere down in this part probably. This is the second full fiscal year of the contract we agreed to, so that's that, how we arrive at that number. So you can see there's an overall decrease there tied to that, obviously. We don't have all the personnel costs. Listers budget, sorry Mimi, I made you wait a really long time. That was not the plan, but Mimi is here, can run you through that. They're going wild, you can see it's crazy. Not really, it's pretty standard fare. There are no reappraisal plans. We've talked about reappraisal reserves, other big long-term projects. This is business steady as it goes.
Any questions?
You don't have any questions?
Sorry, Mimi.
I'm gonna work on our pilot payment if that's it.
Okay.
Thanks, Mimi. As I mentioned in the assistant clerk treasurer line, this is not all Lori adjustment. This is also tied to having some part-time capacity in there. And then as you go through, there are some offsets in some other lines. 27 will be a fairly significant elections year, and that will have primaries. There'll be statewide elections in November 26th, and then we have town meeting. And so there's a couple of extra events in the cycle. We've upgraded some of the technologies, postage. We've gotten down, but some of the maintenance contracts. This is where I wish you was. I believe this ties to the books, or no? Do you happen to remember? I don't remember what the 3,500 is for the maintenance contracts, but I'll get that from her. I don't know that you look terribly concerned, but it's there. Chandler, we pay for the insurance and the heating oil. There's a slight increase in the heating oil cost as we sort of watch the bills. You see there's some bond payments that expire. I'd mentioned and highlighted for you the village fire station payment is here. This year we'd had a plan to pay with some other funds. So this year it's just got it back in here so we can have that conversation. It's planned for. No other new debt service, and then the reserve transfers are all level from year to year. At some point, once we have a better sense of facility needs, this one will likely have to come up. We know at some point there's a very large fraught conversation happening about we have 3 fire departments, 3 buildings, 9 trucks. And at our current rate of saving, we'll replace the top 5 trucks. We should be through truck 5 by I think it's 2050 something. So it will be, and at that point it'll be, I don't even remember how old. I don't know if you recall, some of you weren't on the board, but we did this exercise with fire services, prioritize the trucks, assign a cost. I can dig that back out too. The bottom line is that $110,000 a year, we're not getting there. We're not even getting to the top 5. So at some point, we're gonna have this conversation. This at least keeps us on pace to save money to buy the next truck, and we're getting closer to one of a pumper or a tanker, it's probably Randolph Center based on the priority schedule and the ages from a couple of years ago. The village fire station was able to replace a couple of trucks from the fire, so they have some newer ones. Doesn't mean they don't have a couple of older ones that are toward the end of that useful life or outside of NFPA standards. And then reappraisal reserve, as we said, we've been trying to build that up. I think Mimi and Dennis were in here at one point and ran you through when to do it. We talked about statistical reappraisal, decided to go that route, full reappraisal, save for it. But this is a steady approach. This is essentially repayment of a truck that was purchased for buildings and grounds, but bought with reserves from other places. So that in a nutshell is the general fund. Don't worry, there's only like 1,000 lines in this whole thing. So we're on to highway fund. John has been waiting patiently and anxiously. Is here, and we can run you through some of this stuff. Much like with the revenues, majority of it is property taxes. One of the things that's a little bit unique about highway fund, I say unique in terms of the other funds don't have it. Every municipality gets these amounts from the state. These are state highway aid payments. First class road, though, it's not something everybody gets. That's sort of an opt-in, and you accept responsibility. So when you think about Main Street, Central Street, Park Street, those are class 1 town highways. So we do some maintenance pieces.
Go call somebody real quick.
Okay.
I got a problem.
Do you guys mind switching to police since he's got to do this? We'll go down to Scott's.
Hi, Scott.
I think he's making that up.
He's not coming back.
When he touches his ear and he's not talking to anybody, you know he's next. So why don't do you want to stand there or you want to come over here?
I'm good if you're good.
Okay. So we'll skip down. We'll come back to that. We'll go down to police. Same speech about property taxes being the primary funder. There are no COPS grants funds. We had built them into the budget. We didn't end up using them. We didn't end up finalizing the grant. We didn't end up hiring anybody because there wasn't anybody to hire. So those aren't there as a revenue source. So that's in part why this looks a little bit larger than some of the overall stuff would otherwise lead you to believe. Check that formula. There are no other, we're not, because we can't hire officers, we aren't sort of thinking we're going to be able to extend contract services, special services. We're doing everything we can to meet the needs such as they are. So you get down into the salary sections. Eventually this number gets you to those 4.5 officers. The half comes from, we have some time budgeted based on deployment and orders and timing. So the officer that was here, that was deployed, re-enters at some point, assuming it's toward the back end of that fiscal year. There's some part-time officer capacity that if we needed to, we were able to hire somebody into those slots or we needed to use it differently. And it's not quite to a half-time employee, but you're getting close. There are the 2 officers that have been hired, and then there's slots for 2 more. They're staggered to start. We are still struggling to find candidates. We anecdotally hear it's issues with pay rates. We have heard it's issues with the retirement system because the police are in that system, but there's some effort to move them into a different BSERS group so there's comparability with other law enforcement officers. We're the only law enforcement entity, not in Beamers, that's municipal. And those all have 20, 25-year tenures, whereas ours has 30, and when you're in law enforcement, the mileage is a little bit harder at times than positions like mine say.
And that's our competition, right?
And that's our competition.
You have a choice of different places to go to work, and one says you have to work for 30 years to get full benefits, another one says you have to work 20, where are you going to go?
Yep. And pre-certified officers, the big challenge was the ones that can command higher wages, that have access to retirement systems. Bigger departments are offering signing bonuses. There's 10 years. If you plan it right and jump in the right increments, you can augment your earnings just from those signing bonuses. In addition to, there's just a dearth of candidates. So we have, as much as we like, the reason we like a pre-certified level 3 officer is that somebody you can put into a car. They can do all of the police tasks that we sign level 2. As you sort of move down that certification level, there's less that can be done, or stuff that has to be done with the assistance of a level 3. So they're the most flexible in terms of response because they can do the most. So what we find is that we have a hard time finding officers in those categories, so then we end up having to grow our own a lot. So either take a level 2, put them through the academy. That's the Chelsea was in that spot, right? So we've done that with one of our existing officers. We were on that path potentially with the officer that was deployed, went through the level 2 academy, field training, and at some point there would have been the police academy. When they go to the academy, it's 17 weeks, and they're gone from us too. So they're on the payroll, they're coming at some point. So when you talk about growing your own, if we can find somebody, we can hire them, we can get them on, they make it through all the testing, maybe they start with us for a little bit, do ride-along, essentially glorified ride-along stuff, go to the academy, 17 weeks, they come back, they join, and it's then field training for...
So depending on the certification, if it's a level 2 certified officer, you're looking at 8 months to a year for them to be able to be out on their own. That's all the training. With a level 2 is only 2 weeks in the academy, but their field training with additional trainings and all the above takes about 8 months. If you pick it up and you're good to go, maybe you can push that down a little bit to 6 months, but you're really bullying the jamming. Our last level 2 cert took a year to the date. Level 3, they're gone for 17 weeks, but maybe a 3-month FTO at best, and they're on the road doing everything what we need them to do. So it's not a quick, congratulations, you're a cop, here's your car, here's your keys, don't do anything stupid. It's a very long and tedious process.
And you have to have a field training certified officer for them to work with. We're thankful that we have 2, but that puts the additional sort of stress on those. And some of it is the 3rd eventually could get there, but you need a certain number of years of service before you're eligible, and she's shy of that by a little.
She'll get it next year.
Next year, okay. So we put her through other schooling to expand what we could do. So drug recognition expert and a few other things. When you look down sort of this section, the health insurance is just tied to, like I said, we budget for sort of the middle plan, 2 new employees. There's a percentage of each of those costs that come on. So most of the increases in the police budget on the personnel end, if this story sounds familiar to every other time we've had this conversation since we restarted, it's this. This is why. This is the pressure point, the pain point. We're not 24/7. We run roughly, 7, 8 a.m.? I can't remember if you start at 7 or 8.
Yeah, I usually sign on at 7, and my last officer will sign off at 1.
And we'll extend hours and move shifts a little bit, especially winter parking ban. We know storms are coming. So there are times where you might see officers out at different hours, but we're trying to respond maybe different.
We're going to keep that information in this room, right?
Don't tell.
We adapt all the way around.
Somebody's always somewhere.
I just want to say that in terms of getting the retirement group changed, it looks very promising right now that we're going to get that done.
Good, yeah. Tim from the retirement office gave me a heads up that you guys had a chance to talk and they were doing their part and would help with the lift, so that was cool.
Yeah.
If that passes through all the things at the state level, does it become effective immediately for us?
No, there's a lag time. Best case scenario would be January 1 of
2027?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But it puts us on some level of parity. Our officers will be in the same retirement pool as corrections officers and a few other law enforcement folks at the state level.
And if officers knew that switch was for sure going to happen, it would still be a pretty big deal because they just have whatever time was between their hired and that date that they'd get the 1.5 times instead of 2 times. I forget how.
Yeah.
Don't quiz me on pension speak.
I wouldn't pass.
But once they switch over, they would then contribute at the faster rate.
Yeah, it's months out.
So even though it would take us a while to get there, like it would still should help us pretty quickly.
Yep.
If I,
And that's what's being advertised, that we'll be switching once we heard the word go. That's what we'll advertise to try to get somebody in the door.
Do you feel like that vote will happen soon, or will it happen like towards the end of the session at the state level?
I really,
Yeah.
I could guess, but it would be just a guess.
Okay.
In the January modeling, I think they were assuming, we talked to them a little more than a year ago about this as an option, and if you made a change, I think it was assuming it would be whatever, that's based on whatever pathway the miscellaneous retirement bill has generally had. But obviously it's hard to say without, you won't know until you get there.
This bill though is actually
It's a standalone, right?
It's a standalone bill that would just, so we'll see. It's of course everything's more complicated than you think it's going to be at the beginning of the process.
This is farther than we've ever made it, so this is exciting. Good stuff.
Great. Do you need lobbyists? I can go.
Have you to testify?
Yeah. I come up.
So just as we go through this, we know we're going to have an increase in dispatch costs through conversations that Chief has had with his counterparts in Berry City, so we put in some extra money there. Berry City took us in, and we didn't sort of have a home. Other options we looked at were Hartford, which wasn't able to take us on at that point. State Police hasn't taken on municipalities in who knows how long, if ever. And those were really the three choices for dispatch services. It's still not a terrible price when you sort of compare it to do your own. Rose does offset some of this load when she's on. That's when you saw the admin assist position referenced in the earlier section. She does quite a bit of that when she's there from about 8 to 4:30. And then there aren't too many other changes. We don't change the capital reserve transfer. $25,000 a year over 3 years. You've got enough to replace a fully loaded police car, pretty close to it. At some point that number will have to be adjusted though, because we've got 3 cars. 3 years is the general useful life. Police cars have really hard lives. I think the joke that you liked from prior years, like having a pet shark, moves all the time. And eventually you're going to want to get rid of it before it's too problematic. So we like 3 years, and that's become, I don't want to say a standard, but that's a number I'm familiar with from others and from prior stops. A lot of our equipment schedules, when we get into that in one of the later sessions, we've tried to bend down over the years. So that's 3 years for like a cop car, but you'll see with dump trucks, our preferred schedule is around 7 years. And the reason is that is it matches the warranty for the electrical parts. Because we find that those are the ones that tend to go first. They're expensive, they're maybe more difficult to repair based on our in-house resources. And the trade-in value for a truck at 7 is it's much more agreeable for the future cost than it would be if you waited till 10, which has been. That doesn't mean we don't sometimes fall to 10, we don't sometimes hit somewhere else.
But that's the sweet spot.
But that's, yeah, if all things were perfect and money was no object, that's what we'd be on.
Did we get anything out of the police vehicles when we trade them in?
We reassigned the Dodge to general purpose of one of the older ones. And we did trade.
We haven't traded. The only one that we traded was the truck, and that came over here for the general purposes. The Durango is still in service as a extra at this very moment in time, but it will probably end up being sent on the road.
Scrap metal type thing?
No, I don't think scrap metal, but you got to go through the process of taking all the parts and pieces out of it. You got to take the cage out of it. You got to take all the lights out of it, and it's. But unfortunately, with the Durango, it's a smaller vehicle where a lot of those components may not be able to get reused. But we could probably sell the vehicle itself for something. And that's got a lot of miles on it.
Sure.
They're hard miles.
Because that's one we bought from prior service.
Correct, yeah.
When
So
we
have
restarted.
Traded in a new one yet?
So it had, yeah. So it came to us with some some life lived.
taken
yeah.
out of it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like
Seen some things.
That was my assigned car. So.
Really it had some hard life. Yeah.
some stories.
I don't know if there's anything else you can sort of think of in there that, I mean, the biggest challenges continue to be staffing.
Yep. Is there, would we want to add, or maybe this comes from a different area, but some type of line item about marketing type stuff? Like trying to get a bigger reach? I know like it's a tough market out there in general, but is there like going to job fairs and having pamphlets or?
Well, you and I briefly touched upon this too. I don't think it's a bad idea. It's being able to go out and do so. Unfortunately, in my dilemma going on at this very moment in time, I'm the officer on. With an additional of another half, but for the next couple weeks. So and I find my time extremely limited at best.
Correct. Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure you have all the tools that if we needed to like pay for extra advertising or anything like that, that we would be able to access in some way to push for that. Okay. But we might actually have some of that in the general fund budget anyways, if like we want to pull, like if we need like $500 to.
Yeah, there's $500 in advertising in here, and then if we needed extra,
Yeah,
so a
right.
lot of what we do is digital anyway, with from postings and job boards and other things. If we needed it, we could find it.
I know we're trying to get, there's just not a lot of people out there, but I know sometimes people use headhunters and stuff like that. Is there any other tool that we can use that we can get really creative and try? I know we're not the only one. I mean, all the communities around us don't have officers. The state police don't have officers.
I think the most effective marketing tool to hire officers is going to be increases in hourly rates and sign-on bonuses.
Yeah, okay.
We'd have to jump into that economic. We'd have to stop being the Oakland A's and become the Yankees.
Yeah. Okay.
But we still will have Oakland money. We don't have.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem we're trying to solve. So we end up in a grow your own situation more often than not, and become a training ground. A farm system when we can find somebody, but nobody still wants to be a police officer. And some of the interests we've had, I mean, there's also some of these things you're sort of battling rules, ages, times. Like, had somebody reach out, candidate, started doing the due diligence. They'll be the right age to go to the academy at some point sooner than later, but aren't now. So there are also some age variables when you think about, younger candidates. Somebody who goes, gets an associate's degree in criminal justice may not still be old enough to go to the level 3 academy.
Is it 21?
21 for the level 3.
Whew. All right. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate all of your work.
Do you guys have any questions for me?
I don't right now. Any questions at all? Trini, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions for Scott, but John called and he's probably not going to make it back. He's got a truck broke down right now trying to spread salt.
Okay.
Is he good to go, or? Yes, I am making excuses.
He said he'd like you to bring him a cup of tea.
Right on.
Calm the nerves, yeah.
So I think I just found where we get some more money for the ESA and other things. As these two sort of abandoned ship here, I think we can harvest some resources and move them over. They won't be here. I will do my best to do the highway fund stuff.
Okay.
Some of the levels of detail as to we get into chain stock blades. If you have questions about numbers, materials, unit costs, I'm obviously a little farther removed from that. But I think I can give you the overview, explain where the pressures are and why, and how we tried to balance everything. So just going back to the revenue piece I'd mentioned, We have these state highway aid payments. These are based on what we actually received in the current fiscal year. So they're up a little bit than where they had been. They don't move all that often, and when they do, it's usually smaller movement. These come directly out of the state's transportation fund budget. Hopefully they stay the same. I know somebody on the board could probably speak to the pressures that are faced there. But we have them in at the actual amount received at the moment. There aren't too many other items here. Sale of supplies shows a slight increase. We do the sand permits. This is the line we use to, whoops, it came out. We've got our arrangement with the supervisory union where we provide fuel, and then we bill them in increments for the fuel used for the buses. And so sale of supplies is actually tied to that fuel arrangement. We put in a new system a couple of years ago. It improved accuracy. We can track better which vehicles. We found a few trucks were using quite a bit of gas for where they went, but we're able to charge more effectively, more quickly. They're remote read, so it's really improved the process in a lot of ways. Down into the budget itself, this first section here is for everybody but the mechanic in terms of our personnel. There's a separate section there. We break it out because we do have that cost sharing arrangement. It's a town employee. The time split's roughly 60-40, so 60% for us, 40% for the school. And this has been in place for a while. We'll have to revisit this agreement at some point as it gets closer to expiring. The increases based on where rates are. This is sort of, we got John, you've got one guy who just got elevated to assistant department leader, so that has a little bit of a rate change for him, but he's got more responsibility. And that's Spencer's doing a great job. And then the rest of the crew, there's some part-time capacity in that number two. We've got a couple of guys that we use throughout the summer to help haul material, particularly as we're getting ready for winter. And we have other help that we have come in. You've probably seen a young kid in a sidewalk plow. It's a young kid, he's 19, I think, 18, 19. And other folks you might see in trucks as we look to sort of augment. So we have a couple of vacancies. We had one, we just acquired a second one today. So we're down a couple of guys there. Health insurance is just smaller changes around the margin, nothing major there. In terms of the decrease, not too much going on in there. These are our best guess. We had them in the union contract. We haven't yet tried to deploy them. Longevity bonuses and merit bonuses. We have one employee who's going to qualify for a longevity bonus and actually did in the current fiscal year. And the merit bonuses were an extra way. If you earn it, we can provide a little bit. It's all defined in that collective bargaining agreement. We haven't done any of them yet, but we've got a couple of folks who are at that spot where they would be eligible for one based on performance. And so we can give a maximum to each employee depending on, we can give it in smaller amounts, give it in whole. There's some flexibility in deployment. What we were trying to drive at with that when we went back to the contract was we want to reward performance to the extent possible, and not just longevity. Because a lot of our hard chargers may not be our longest tenured folks. That doesn't mean they're not doing a good job. I don't want anybody, but I want to make sure we can get everybody in some form. Down through here, the materials cost is a big one. Salt, as we mentioned. It's hard enough with the sort of the scarcity. Supply is also an issue right now. We mentioned the cost. Sometimes even getting salt, we had to borrow a couple of loads from the state, from the district garage. Thankfully we were able to do that for one of the recent storms, and then we got delivered just sort of on the front end of one of those storms. So we had enough supply for that, and some other storms that have happened. We've got other sort of, when you look at chloride, even guardrail, culvert, gravel roads, these are all tied to summer maintenance primarily. We have more than 80 miles of gravel road, I believe it is, which is a lot. That's why we've got 2 graders. It takes a full week throughout the summer for both of them to get all around, and then the chloride helps. We don't use it, and it's a drought set of conditions like last summer. You might see increased dust. It helps the roads hold up. Pretty effective maintenance tool. John could talk obviously more about how they use it when they deploy it. I can spell it. But culverts too, we've talked about in prior years, we use our road erosion inventory. We try to replace culverts that are on the sections that are yellow and red in that one because they indicate where they're not functioning, they're undersized, maybe there are other issues. This has had a great impact on water quality, on road performance, on mitigating mud season issues in certain areas, not obviously eliminating, but helping. Gravel, same thing, where we try to do a certain amount of work. We have a few different gravel sources. This one is more for, if you notice in mud season, we'll put down sort of larger stone in certain areas that are particularly tricky, and then sort of use those as, it almost looks like a rough construction road. So it's a a larger aggregate, or however you want to call it. And then what we'll do is sort of grade it in, add fines, improve the road base, but it seems to hold up better in some of these spots that particularly get muddy. And an idea that they hit on one day that I think we're trying based on what we had available for material, and it's worked. It's not an everywhere solution, but if you see that, it's one of the ways we're using it. Pavement patching, this is what we use when we do utility cuts, when we want to do pothole patching, when we're doing sort of smaller repair jobs. We put a little bit more into that. We've paved quite a bit in the last 4 or 5 years compared to the years prior. But we've got a lot of roads, heavily traveled. We're a service center, so, and weather's variable, so you see freestyle cycles, potholes appear. And so this lets us do a little more if possible. So most of the pressure really is in these material sections through here. And then you can see a few others for like the chain stock and blades, primarily ties to winter maintenance, vehicle repair maintenance. We've upgraded a lot of it. We've got some other repairs that may not be the capital level projects, but will be expensive. The older grader needs some work, for example. And we've used this line to pay for those, plus any truck repairs, and having a little extra has been prudent, but that's an area that we could always revisit if we needed to. Equipment rentals, we rent, oftentimes this will be reimbursed. We'll go back up to revenues. You'll see the grants and aid reimbursement. Every year the state provides these, usually around $20,000 to $25,000, usually around 2022 is what we've seen. They help us upgrade sections of road that appear on our road erosion inventory. So Howard Hill, on one of the steep parts a couple of years ago, where we reshaped the road surface, added material, improved ditching. Ferris Road was a big one, and the grants help offset that cost. We use gravel road reserve, we'll use equipment rental. So some of this gets reimbursed. Some of this we'll use for our own projects, depending on what we've got going on. But so if we need a larger excavator than the one we've got, for example, or we need extras of something, we've done that. Oftentimes it does prove to be reimbursable. It was really handy. We had one in house when the storm hit in 23, and so we decided we're not giving that back, and it helped us respond more capably than if we had to try to find one at a time when everybody else was looking for them. I mentioned the mechanics in a different section down here. They're the only employee for that. Not really much changing there. Smaller operating expense, heating oils, that's an aging building, a former, it was used as a National Guard or an Army depot. It had a past life. But this is closer to where we think usage is going to be. Garage maintenance, we know we've got leaks, issues with leaks, issues with doors. There's multiple things to do, so we've got a little extra in there. This was tied to Chelsea Mountain Road to a bond in 2005 to improve that in a few different spots. And that one, this was the final payment here in 26, so it's a small reduction in debt service, but it's always nice to see it going that way. This one we've got to assign. We replaced 2 trucks, one a 6-wheeler we paid for with ARPA funds. This is the one we're doing a lease to own 5 years. And so this is year 2 of that. That's for the 10-wheeler. The 10-wheelers we tend to use winter maintenance on back roads and for heavier hauling. The 6-wheelers you'll see sometimes out there, sometimes in the village. They're flex, and then we have some 550 size trucks that we might use for other smaller jobs. Coming down to the reserve funding, not too much in terms of increases here, a little bit into the paving reserve, and then a little bit more into the sidewalk reserve. We've spent out of it with some of the matches for scoping studies and other things, and this lets us start to increase that. If you'll remember, in the inventory there were some orders of magnitude of cost. So you'll see that there are projects, you go back to that sheet in December, it had a few in there. when we get to the capital plan, you'll see that we're trying to build out based on at least some model to say if we can take that inventory, build out the sections, also provide some funding to do at least to start to plan for a project that's in that scoping study too that looked at the extensions on Weston Main toward Shaw's and Park Street toward the park. And when we talked about it in December, we knew the estimates were going to be a little bit higher. We were thinking about a grant program, so we'll have to shuffle some stuff around if we truly want to pursue that one. It was the least expensive, I guess, if you think of it, of the options, but still is a substantial project, so we'll need more than our reserve resources. So the idea is to try to use it in two ways. One, to bring everything up to a better state, to a better quality level, better score on the inventory out of the reds, and hopefully up toward the green at a minimum, let nothing get sort of below a yellow, which are just the cautionary numbers. So we'll start to do those sections. So we thought about a couple of different ones, but the ability to move those around, and we can, as conditions deteriorate, it's a capital plan, we set them aside, we plan on spending the dollar amount, we have the projects, but sometimes things require attention out of schedule, and we revamp the schedule. But those would not be projects that we do within house resources, so there'll be some sort of procurement process, and so you'll also see it again at that point. No real changes in service. We just have a lot of road. The increasing variability of weather is a pressure point. Winter storms that are like this last one a little bit, where there's rain, there's sleet, there's ice, there's snow. It stops, it starts, it stops, it starts.
It's been a little bit of a stressful year, hasn't it? Or is it just?
Yeah, we haven't had that one real big nor'easter style storm, but we've had a series of ones that require response.
Yeah. It does seem like our roads are getting beaten up faster with climate change over the last few years.
Freeze thaws. I think pavement longer, well, at least in the medium term, will be more of the struggle because of the changing weather. I mean, at some point,
we just have a lot more freeze thaw cycles than we used to.
At some point, we may move out of mud season before we ever move out of pothole season. Will live forever. Maybe not.
Trevor, I'd just like to add a couple things so that folks don't go away with the wrong impression. All across Vermont this year, we've had the high demand on salt, and it's been a problem. And the state garages have lent to 43 towns this year so far that were having trouble getting salt in time for application. So Randolph by far is not alone on that. And actually, it was only a couple loads for a few days. So it's not poor planning on our highway department side, and it's not anybody's fault anywhere. It's just the way that salt comes into Vermont and the way that the mines provide it to all their customers. It wasn't going to get here any quicker. And, fortunately, there's a process in place where the state lends to the municipalities that reach out. The other one is the mention of the blades and whatnot. Steel in general is up. It jacked during COVID and it has not come back down. So that's the impact you're seeing on those it's on the price of steel, and you see it in his culvert line item and you see it in his chains and blades line item. So those are just, unfortunately, it's just the cost. Randolph did get a very good price on salt this year, and not sure you'll get that next year. That might have come out of a different type of negotiation that I happen to be in. But it's salt is going to go up, and Trevor's right, it's going to stay up. The majority of it was up around 112, I think, a ton, 113 a ton. That's a sizable increase for all municipalities. So I think the increases that we're seeing here are all market driven.
Brittany, do you think there's anything that we can do to kind of pivot and change and prepare for that to continue to happen, or do you think it's going to be a temporary thing?
For salt, everything that we're seeing, it's going to stay. It hasn't come down, and we're actually looking at a few things. We're going to try to, at the state level, we're going to explore some off-cycle contracting. And see more about like using up the salt during the season and then refilling the sheds in the summertime instead of the wintertime. You know, we're told that's going to give us a little bit better price, but nothing drastic. So could we potentially stay in the range that we're in this year? We might be able to. There's a variety of things that we're figuring out could get us a little bit better price, you know, with what we're doing at the state level. Most of that is your timing for contracting, your minimum maximums in your contracts, things like that. But in most cases, when you're looking at the municipal level, the volume doesn't bring you into a lot of that options. And sometimes our state contracts, the suppliers will allow municipalities to buy off them. But lots of times you can negotiate a better price yourself. So it's a tough one. I don't know if, we'll see. Yep, go ahead.
I was going to ask if it'd be worth trying to do a regional buy of salt for some of those towns, or is that not going to get us very far?
Not going to get you very far.
Was an effort to bulk buy municipally back in 07-ish range when there was a similar spike in price issue with supply. And it just didn't end up panning out. It's the nature of what that marketplace is, where the supply is, just weren't able to, even though a number of municipalities signed on. This was through VLCT, it just didn't. There was one bidder, it was almost the same price that we were seeing. It was, I think, Barrett on behalf of the Cargill at the time. So we did all that to end up in essentially the same space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Towns don't like to commit to, when you do a bulk buy, they don't like to commit to a volume, and they don't like to commit to that because there's, in a lot of cases, they can go out and negotiate a better price. So, we did it may be the same one we're talking about, Trevor. We did an effort with VLCT, and we got all the volumes that towns wanted, and we included it in with the state buy, thinking the volume would give us this much better pricing. And most of, the majority of the towns backed out of it. So then the salt companies were like, we're not playing this game. So it's tough. It's a tough one. I think, Randolph, we would be better off if we go out in the April-May timeframe to contract our salt. That seems to be when the best pricing comes out. The salt mines will give you a better price when they're getting to their mining volume. Once they get over that, it's not mandatory, and they're usually mining it as the season's going, which increases their costs to produce it. So there's probably a few things we could do to look at it.
Thank you. All right.
We'll keep trying to be thoughtful in the use. You'll see we stay on drivers a lot. How much do you use? Where are you using it? When you lay it down thicker in them in spots where you're going to need it, where there's maybe a safety issue, and but you might also see us sort of trickle it down the center line and hope that it melts out over time. So they'll certainly not bare roads. It'll be safe roads at safe speeds, but that will require some adjustment. Although we shall see.
All right. Anything else on that part of the agenda? Any questions or anything? I'm not seeing anything from online, although I don't really know what to look for. I don't use Zoom. I just get lost in this. Okay, awesome.
Themselves off now. I
Okay,
see
great. All right, then onward. Town manager's report.
Just a couple quick things. We finished paperwork with the EV chargers. Those shall be live here shortly if they aren't already. So if anybody wants to try them out, they are level 3 rapid chargers. New finance director starts on Wednesday. She confirmed she's still coming today. Very excited.
Wednesday's the day?
Yep. And so we've got a nice training protocol set up. And so if you have a chance to stop by at some point and say hi, please do. I was going to mention the Beasters bill that Larry already mentioned and say thanks. That's great. Nice to see that moving along. We sat down and reviewed the new website today now that everybody's back and healthy on each end. The estimate is that we are 87% complete. Almost 88. There are a couple pages. There are a couple pages to build out that they're more about. They just added some of the billing access billing modules. We went through some of the layout. We made sure that everything that needs to be there is there and got transferred over. We moved some of the tiles around. It should be really nice. It looks a little different. If you want one that's kind of comparable, at least it gives you a sense of where we're headed until we get there. Brattleboro's got some of the same elements, same designer. We will run both websites for a little bit, just because people are used to going to one and have cross references to each other. To say, hey, the official one's here, but we're leaving this one up to sort of
Old time sake type thing?
yeah, in case you want to revisit the picture from Kansas. You can do that at any point. So hopefully that'll be soon. I hesitate to put an exact date on it because we've been there before and stuff has happened. We're planning by the end of the month to retire the old one and move to the new one or somewhere thereabouts. So that's the schedule we're looking at currently. So we'll look again on Tuesday, do some user training, some demo, make sure stuff works, different users can make stuff work. And then at some point after that, final fixes, and we'll turn it on.
So not a few days, but not a few months, probably more like a few weeks.
Please by the next February meeting.
Yeah.
Most likely, unless something doesn't work on it, and then we might need a little more time.
And it will have some nice new features. There'll be a calendar down below where you can see the events. You can click on an agenda, you can click on a Zoom link, you can click on a packet. So if you're interested in meetings like this, it'll be a little easier. You can still do the deep dive and take the different links and all the other stuff. You can pay bills, get to, or you can pay your tax bills, your water sewer payment. I think you're even going to be able to register your dog. Make those payments. It will integrate well if we do an online permitting system. That'll just drop in as a link. We're going to add some.
This, but is it going to be managed? Like, does staff need training to like?
We'll have some training on how to manage folders, files. Some staff have already had some training throughout, but we'll have some additional additional trainings, and there is support provided sort of throughout the implementation. And then trying to think, there's something else I was going to say. ADA compliance got, it will be a really nice, much overdue upgrade. So links have been tested. We still might have a broken or an odd one somewhere. So if somebody sees that once it's live, let us know. So we paid somebody to go through and make sure those all worked. So they should, but.
It's okay to take a question, or did you Tamara had a question?
Yeah, it's
Tamara Morgan. What about the content management program that we used to go through? Will there be something similar to put minutes and agendas?
Yeah, and it'll be more of speaking sort of colloquially about what I saw today, and not that's the sort of the back of the house function that you'll interact with will essentially be folders set up in a Google Drive, and you'll have access to whatever board, committee, whatever it is that sort of you're representing. You'll be able to drop minutes and agendas into that, so have a login to be able to access that, to be able to do those pieces. It looks more intuitive. I mean, as you have used the one we've got, it certainly looks like it's going to be a lot more user-friendly, which is nice. That's all I have.
Anything else for the manager's report?
Oh, nope.
Nothing else from you? Okay. All right.
So you had set aside executive session. We still have a crowd, and you do have an action. I'll give you a couple of different sort of options for how you want to handle it. We can put everything on pause,
put everybody in a waiting room and kick everybody out of the room and try to stay here. We can move to one of the other spaces, leave everybody here, leave this running, and we'll come back. So we can either go up to my office and we'll call Trini separately there, or we can go in there and do it. So it's sort of your choice. You guys moving probably creates less disruption for everybody if folks are going to stick around. If folks aren't going to stick around, then that's a different.
Is anybody sticking around to hear our vote from when we exit executive?
It could.
They'll be notified,
Yeah.
right?
So why don't we call Trini? Why don't we move to another space?
I hate to
Yeah.
ask people to wait for us.
So we'll move.
Well, we will move, yeah.
And then everybody can stay, and then we'll just come back.
Yeah.
Right now, I
would be one of them. Sorry. Whatever you guys
I
want
guess
to do.
I'm just.
You give Sarah the option, I guess, right? If she's gonna stay, or
I mean,
the one
it
to
just.
like.
Oh, I was gonna say. Yeah, we can leave.
I just hate to have people waiting for us. And for something like this where it's not really, time's not of the essence.
Well, true, but we still have to make the vote out of executive session, and that still needs to be recorded, right?
Sure. I just hesitate to ask people to. I don't know how long our conversation's going to be.
Oh, well, that's their choice, I guess, if they want to stay. Great.
If they don't stay, they will be notified.
Yeah,
It's not like we're gonna like,
yeah, candidates or no, yeah.
We're all set up. It just seems. I don't know.
But folks are able to stay and
want to.
We just haven't had anybody. We haven't had an outcome in terms of you're going to go in and do. We haven't done one of these in a while, so.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No.
But first we have to vote to go into executive, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So it's a 2-1. First would be the finding. Second would be the one where you set the section. This is to consider the candidates for planning commission.
Entertain a motion as such. Anyone would like to make it?
You should read the finding, just for.
Is he getting the language?
Hang on, it's in the.
Make a motion to find that executive session is necessary and prudent, and that premature general vote of knowledge will place the town at a disadvantage.
Is that the one?
Somehow.
That's the one.
This one, okay.
Recommended by
Great.
the LCT and others.
Any seconds?
A second.
Oh yeah, that's me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. And we need a motion to go into executive now.
Motion to enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A3. Is it personnel appointment?
This was the
evaluation,
appointment
all of it?
evaluation, yeah. Appointment, really.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I am
Opposed?
going
Motion
to
passes.
pause the recording. We will restart it when we come back.
Recording stopped.
My son figured out his email while we were over here.
He did what?
He figured out his no. I tried getting Melina like really excited about a flip phone because I was like, those are exactly what I want when I was your age.
I had one for a long time.
That's funny.
What about instead of a flip phone, one of those ones that's like a keyboard?
Oh yeah, those are so fun.
Or a BlackBerry.
I was much older than her though.
Do they still make them?
No. Oh, do they?
They go out of business. Kill a few trees looking at
Carrie sent me a bunch of emails.
Oh, they ended in 2022.
Oh, man.
We're waiting for your expertise in how to do this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. No worries.
I had a moment to.
It's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Duly noted.
Okay. So what was the question?
Do we have to
make
a motion?
Do we have to make a motion to come back into a regular?
Or to appoint?
When you exit executive session, you re-entered regular
We're
session.
automatically
Yeah.
back into regular session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
That makes sense. I should.
Okay. Great. That's great.
All right. So do we just make a motion to appoint the choices?
Yeah.
Or do we have any discussion?
I mean, they're all.
Well, we can make the motion, and then we can just talk about what our thinking was, what our rationale was.
Would anybody like to make the motion?
And actually state the names?
I think so. Yeah.
That's what we would do.
Yep.
So much pressure.
I'll make a motion to appoint Cody Armstrong and William McGrath to the Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We would love.
Did you?
Trini, did you say aye? Just an aye.
She's muted.
Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't want to.
We quite often have more openings though, so we'd love to have you stay informed and stuff and in the loop. Those are really, usually we have no one looking for these positions, so, but there's quite often turnover, and there's different options too, so.
And we appointed Cody because we don't have someone with his agricultural voice on the planning commission. It's felt like a real weakness of the current board, the current commission. And we appointed Bill because of his deep experience with the DRB. And I mean, he spoke to it, I thought, quite well, where he talked about his experience with our current land use regulations and how they need fixing. And he knows them really well. And I say it as if I'm on the commission, but I'm just the liaison. But one of the stated goals of the PC right now is to update the land use records, and so he'll be really invaluable. So that's why we made those choices.
Yeah. But please keep coming, and you can actually go to those meetings too, and give your input. Like Larry was saying, a lot of it is mostly input on that board or the commission. So you could have a really strong voice there without having a vote of actually being assigned to it. And then if there's an opening, then then you'd be kind of in the know already, and quick to know that there's an opening too. So you can, And come March, sometimes we have resignations too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I'm really glad you're here.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, really impressive resume too. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for your interest.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
So just to recap real quick, we were still muted for part of that.
Oh, okay.
Larry Molly, were the motion to exit executive session, which came back 8:12 p.m. Passed unanimously. You made the 2 appointments. You encouraged folks to come back and stay abreast of other opportunities. Bill McGrath and Cody Armstrong.
Thank you,
And
Sarah.
now you're caught up. So.
Yep. Okay.
To anybody who missed that, we restarted the recording but needed to
I think you have a question.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, Judy. I think you are in the blind spot. Yes, what's your question?
The terms of those 2 appointments?
Do they have terms?
Oh. They do. I believe they do. Good catch.
Yeah, thank you, Judy.
No. Richard says vacant ×2.
Hang on, I'll look them up.
Yeah, so I'm trying to.
That's interesting. Do all of our boards and commissions have terms? Because the DRB doesn't.
I think they. I think they all do.
The advisory ones.
I know we
may not.
reapprove everything in March, but
Right. So I think the committees all have like 1-year terms, and
Okay.
we reappoint every year for people.
okay, that's why.
And then for the planning commission, they are definitely like such.
Staggered.
There's yeah,
Interesting.
and I think that's like that on the DRB as well.
Yeah.
So we show 2 vacancies, and right now you have 3 that expire in 27 and 2 that expire in 26. So you could either go both expiring. I mean, expiring in 26 means you're going to go through this all again in March. So I would say put them both at.
Well, don't we have? Who do we have of the members that are? There are 5 members right now, right?
Yeah, Matt Johnson and Josh Hanford are 26 expirations.
Okay. So presumably we would just reappoint them when their term is up if they're interested.
Correct. You could do one in 26 and one in 27.
Or
Trying to find a list here.
those are the. So Trini, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. I'm a little confused. So the 2 open spots, one's a term, one's for a term to be finished in 26, and one's for a term to be finished in 27.
There's 2 vacancies and they are not listed as having a term.
Oh, they're not.
End date with them. They're left open for the board to decide. You have 3 expiring 2027 and 2 expiring in 26.
And so are they usually 2-year
But they're
terms?
filled.
Are they usually 2-year terms then?
Yes.
And do they have to end at March? Is that
Yes.
the problem?
They tend to, because you do appointments.
Right. That's a little inconvenient.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me just see. I might be able to.
You could do them both in 27, you could do them both in 26, or you could do one in each.
Well, we already have 3 in
27.
27, right? So we could do 1 more in 27, right? Because we'd have 4 and 3. Wouldn't we want it to
Yeah, exercise.
Yep.
like? I mean,
That would make sense. What your goal is not to have everybody up at the same time, so you have some experience sitting there.
yeah.
Yep, so Ollie's at 27. Johnson's at 26.
One of these is a 3-month appointment.
Listen.
So it's
Yeah, early March would be March, was it the 2nd or 3rd is town meeting? It's at our first meeting right after that we would have to reappoint or find you. But yeah.
Did they know that when they asked to join?
I know. Can we communicate that out with the
Yeah.
decision just to everybody?
I'm
Just
sorry,
like
Russ.
once we figure this out.
I was trying to look at an old appointment list and figure out.
Maybe until March 12th.
If I did some research, I might be able to figure out what these 2 vacancies were.
Mm.
Like, I didn't even know we had 2 vacancies. I thought we had 1. So.
Yeah, until last week.
I don't know what those terms were before without going backwards and doing all the research.
Is there any way that we could, like, would we resend our vote until next week? To our next meeting, which will be next week? Or can we clarify next week?
We made the appointment. We just didn't clarify the term, so we could say
So next week
these
we
2 are
specify the
appointed,
term.
and next week we'll specify the term,
Because either way, it won't expire before March.
and then we will know.
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's just kind of technicality.
I was trying to figure out quickly, but I have gaps in between who's on the website and who's in the last appointment list.
You haven't adjourned. You can still just appoint one for each year, one for 26 and one for 27.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, logically, it makes sense.
That's what makes,
Yeah,
that
mathematically.
makes the most sense. You got an even split almost.
And then we'll still take a look at it, and if for some reason that's not
We could then.
what they are, then
next
you
week
can,
Modify. Okay.
appoint them to the accurate ones.
Okay. So I think we should do it now.
For clarity, so we don't get tripped up on our minutes, it should be a second motion.
Okay, so I'll entertain a second motion. I think we should just pick one for 2026. I don't think it really matters.
I don't think it really matters.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Bill McGrath for till 2027 and Cody Armstrong till 2026.
That's what I was gonna say.
Second.
Oh, you didn't get to second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Look at
Alyssa?
Alyssa, yep.
Does it make sense to clarify and send just that update and clarification to everybody, just so they know that?
Even like we're appointing until March, but yeah, how the process works. Yeah, I think we can probably communicate that in the letters. Okay.
Since it is nice to have interest.
It is really nice to have interest. That was really awesome. Like really good interest too.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. All right. Our favorite motion. What do you
Make a
guys
motion
think?
to adjourn.
I second that.
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.